This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, especially at the moment, I do hope you're well. Yes, another day, another video. As you can tell, like probably most of you, I've got some time on my hands, so I thought I might as well do something more constructive than watching Cash in the Attic or Come Down With Me. This is basically a series of videos that I've been thinking about doing something along these lines for a while now. And what sparked this was I was clearing out the old junk drawer over there, just off shot. And I came across my first ever very basic MP3 player from, I guess, about 2003. I bought that. I think I paid over £100 for it in a local branch of Dixon's, and it had a massive storage capacity of 256 megabytes. Yes, indeed, all of that space to fill with lovely music. So when you are, and I bought that then because we were going on holiday and I wanted to take some music with me. And when you've got 256 megabytes, or only 256 megabytes, you soon realise that you're limited in the amount of albums that you can carry around with you. I mean, nowadays, we are so accustomed to basically carrying our entire music collection around with us all in one big lump that we forget that back in the early days of digital music, it was somewhat limiting. So what you did back then was make up compilation albums. Well, you start off, I guess, by buying compilation albums, and then you look at the track listing. And has this ever happened to you? You look at the track listing of a particular artist or a particular genre's compilation album or best of, and you think, what? What's that track doing on there? Why is that there? Case in point, do you remember that double CD collection from the 90s? I think it was called The Best Rock Album in the World Ever. And if you're going to pick a Meatloaf track to put on an album called The Best Rock Album in the World Ever, it's got to be Bat Out of Hell, hasn't it? It just has to be. Or perhaps Dead Ringer for Love. No, what did they put onto it? That awful, schmaltzy, khaki power ballad, I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that. Therein lies the problem with, kind of record company issued compilation albums. So I started making my own. And today we're going to look at the compilation album that I made in the, about 2003, 2004, early 2000s for Eric Clapton. It's entitled The Best of Clapton. So let's have a look at the tracks that earned a place on that, shall we? We start off with 3 tracks from the John Mayall and the Blues Breakers album, colloquially known as the Beano album, because Eric's reading a copy of the Beano on the front. Rambling on My Mind, the first ever, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is the first ever recorded evidence of Eric singing. Apparently he hates the sound of his voice on that. He wanted it to sound low and gruff like a grizzled old bluesman, and it sounds like a 19-year-old lad from the home counties in England, which is what he was. Stepping Out, blistering instrumental blues guitar, absolutely fantastic version of that tune, and ditto Hideaway. For me, those are the 3 standout tracks on that Beano album. We then move into the Cream era with Sunshine of Your Love, White Room and Crossroads. Now, Eric's playing had evolved and matured by the time he got involved with Jack and Ginger, and you can really hear that on these tracks, I think. He's doing more, if you want the technical analysis of it, he's doing more note targeting to kind of play over chord changes, basically. And, just has there ever been a better live guitar solo than what he did on Crossroads? I don't think so. So from the Cream era, Sunshine of Your Love, White Room and Crossroads, I think the 3 best tracks that came out of that whole period of his career. We then move on to what I think is, if I'm going to name my favourite standalone Eric Clapton album, it would be this one, which is slightly ironic because it's not really an Eric Clapton album. It's Derek and the Dominos, Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. I mean, what tracks have I chosen from here? Well, Bell Bottom Blues, Why Does Love Got to Be So Sad, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, Have You Ever Loved a Woman, and Key to the Highway. Okay? I mean, this entire album is basically a love letter to Pattie Boyd, George Harrison's wife, who Eric was absolutely head over heels in love with at the time. And just the whole album is suffused with this angst and frustration and passion of unrequited love. And boy, is he trying to kind of get it out of his system on that album. He's really got something to prove. And just the back and forth jamming between Eric and Duane Allman, who also appears on this album. If you don't have it in your collection, then you really need to check it out. If you're a fan of blues, electric blues guitar playing, then you will find nothing finer than this, in my humble opinion. So what do we got next? Well, we've got a couple of tracks from Eric's self-titled debut solo album, as you would expect, called Eric Clapton. It's the one where he's sat in a white suit with a brown sunburst Strat on the cover. A couple of good tracks on this album. Let It Rain, which for me, that has shades of Mark Knopfler in the guitar work on that, or maybe Mark Knopfler has shades of Eric Clapton in his, in the guitar work that he would do later on in the decade with Dire Straits. Yeah, a great album. It's not as fiery. It's not as full on as perhaps the Layla album, but it's still got that same sort of vibe, but maybe in a more relaxed and rootsier kind of fashion. Coming after that, we've got I Shot the Sheriff, Motherless Children, and Give Me Strength. 3 tracks from 461 Ocean Boulevard. Eric at this point in his life was fresh out of rehab, having got off the heroin, and it continues that sort of looser, rootsier, more relaxed, kind of airier feel to the music. And it's a good chill out album, and those are my 3 favorite, I beg your pardon, tracks off it. I think Motherless Children is an absolute cracking foot stomping track as well, actually, but it still manages to do it in a kind of a loose, rootsy, relaxed vibe. And then from the mid-70s to the late 80s, I personally think that was a bit of a fallow period for Eric. I read his autobiography. I got it for Christmas a few years ago. And just the subtext of that is that there's very little music that he produced in that period that he is particularly proud of. He was talking in the book about how his main priority at the time was partying. He recounts the tale of at one particular gig, he actually played the entire gig, laid flat on his back because he was too drunk to stand up, laid the microphone down beside him, he laid down and did the entire gig like that. And he said, I didn't care, and neither did the audience, because they were as wrecked as I was. It's not a recipe for great music, really. And, I don't think from, as I say, the mid-70s onwards to about the late 80s, there was really anything of note in his career. That's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree. Although, there are a couple of exceptions, which we're going to come to now. Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, the title track from the Roger Waters album, Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. I did a What Makes This Solo Work analysis on this ages ago. I actually think this is probably Eric Clapton's finest solo. The old fire, the old spark, the old magic is back, and you do get occasional glimpses of it from time to time in his work of that period. If you don't know the album, it's well worth checking out and listen to the title track. The solo on that is it's not particularly technically difficult, but it really is just Eric firing on all cylinders. Another one from that period, Forever Man. This was from the Behind the Sun album, which I bought and listened to and tried to like in about, when was it, 84, 85 when that came out. And no, it's just, the album just, it was too slick, it was too polished, it sounded like, well, a mate of mine summed it up at the time brilliantly well. He said it's just wine bar background music, isn't it? But that one track, Forever Man, once again, a little spark of the old Eric flashing through there, a little bit of the old fire. Interestingly, his output live, he was still delivering the goods back then. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. Go and check out his set from Live Aid. You know, fantastic set. And then, of course, I've spoken about this gig many times, the Carl Perkins and Friends Rockabilly session from, I think, 86, where it was like an audience with Carl Perkins and amongst other luminaries of the time that come out. You know, there's Ringo Starr, there's a couple of guys from Stray Cats, there's Dave Edmunds, there's George Harrison, and Eric comes out and, for me, absolutely steals the show. He was on fire that night. He'd had his Weetabix that morning, let's say. So then we end up in the late 80s with the album Journeyman. Bunch of great tracks on this album. Hard Times, Before You Accuse Me, the massive single Bad Love, and, you know, 3 great tracks off that album. I saw him on the first night of that tour. It was at the NEC in January 1990. I saw that gig, and he was absolutely, again, firing on all cylinders. The old spark, the old fire, the old magic was back, but it had a more rounded maturity to it, and, you know, it was all the better for it. And I still go back and listen to that period of his career, you know, quite regularly. It's it marks the new dawn of the new Clapton for me. Anyway, then I did hear. I used to listen to, anybody else remember, like, the Saturday afternoon show on BBC Radio 1 in the UK? I think it was Richard Skinner or Johnny Walker used to host it. And it was just basically, you know, all that was going on in the kind of rock world and, you know, like more mature music. It wasn't the usual kind of Radio 1 top 40 prattle. And there would be live sessions from invited studio guests and so on. And there was talk on one of these about Eric Clapton doing a live acoustic album. And I thought, oh, here we go. This is, you know, it's back into the Eric on autopilot mode again, isn't it? Well, how wrong was I? I mean, the Unplugged album. I know it has its detractors. I love it. I think it's a fantastic collection of tunes. And once again, even though there's not a steaming Marshall or Music Man amp or Strat in sight, he still has that fire again. I keep using that word, but you know, when he's on form, Eric Clapton's playing, I think, is best described as fiery, and it's in evidence on that album. So some tracks from that album, I would say, Layla, the unplugged version. Brilliant reworking of that, brilliant reimagining of that tune. Alberta, you know, just that false start on that song where, you know, he starts it and then realises he's still got the slide on his finger and has to restart it. Just, you know, a little bit of humour in there as he restarts the song. Tears in Heaven, well, we all know the circumstances of that song, and this was Eric's comment on that very tragic event in his life. And I think it was, when I first heard that song, I thought, this is really touching that he's sharing this with his audience in, you know, in a way that is neither mawkish nor indulgent. It's just, here's how I'm feeling, guys. And it's a very touching tune, that. And then another tune that was already on the list earlier, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, the unplugged version of it, which apparently is the first arrangement of that song that Eric really ever came up with. When he used to go and busk in coffee bars and stuff as a teenager, he would play that song. I think is it an old Bessie Smith song? And you know, then they kind of electrified it for the Layla period, and then you kind of stripped it back down, and it works absolutely fantastically well on this album. So there you go, folks. 25 tracks that earned a place on my The Best of Clapton compilation that I put together way back in the days when I had my old 256 megabyte MP3 player. Let me know what your 25 Eric Clapton tracks are that would make it onto your best of compilation, if any at all. Maybe you're not a Clapton fan. If so, why are you watching this video? And that is pretty much it for today, folks. I do hope you've enjoyed the video and found it mildly diverting and entertaining as you're whiling away this rather lovely spring day as we're all stuck inside. If you've enjoyed the content, then please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so, and leave me a like while you're at it. And if you want to support the channel, all the links down below to every way that you can support the channel. Don't forget, this coming Friday, that'll be the 27th of March, because the pubs are shut, we're having a little gathering here on YouTube. I'm doing a live stream. I think let's call it the Time Gentlemen Please live stream. We're basically going to have a beer and a chat, and it will be fun, and I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching, folks. See you next time. Stay safe, and bye for now.